Welcome everybody to the Prime People Podcast. I'm very excited. Today we're going to be digging into how to use social media to convert organic business. That means real dollars and cents. I can tell you, as somebody boots on the ground who is getting lead after lead after lead through Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, this is real money. So we are bringing on Michelle Berman. She's the creator of the Power Method. So we're going to be looking at it through the lens of real estate and loans or mortgages and how they bring in clients using organic. But trust me, this will apply to any business. I don't care if you do custom shoes, you roast coffee, you do anything else, it will apply. Couple housekeeping notes for the Prime People Podcast. So we are streaming live on StreamYard right now. StreamYard is an incredible platform. No, they didn't pay me to say that, but it allows me to go on Facebook. It allows me to go on YouTube, Instagram, all of the platforms. But the primary platform that it lives on is my YouTube channel. So if you want to see leading experts like Scott McGilvery, Ryan Serhant, Michelle, and many, many others, that's where we're going to host the back episodes. We're working on doing all the time stamping to make it super efficient for you. And we have one very big bonus for you. So we have been working on a PDF drop that we're going to do monthly for you. So disseminating a lot of these conversations into actionable steps. So if you don't have time to watch the whole video, that's okay. Just hit subscribe, hit like, give me a little comment, and then take that PDF guide and go make some money. So those are some of the major announcements that we have right now. And I can't wait to introduce you to Michelle. She's waiting in the room. So let's get to it in a moment. Welcome to the Prime People Podcast, where we cover all things that got us to where we are today, our team building strategies, the marketing and sales tips that we've learned through thousands of transactions, productivity tips, ways to really just hold yourself accountable to accomplishing what you want to accomplish, and all things content creation, personal development, and not to mention we have some of the best guests on the planet. We definitely do have some of the best guests on the planet. I feel like I need to update that video. It's a little bit old, but Michelle, welcome to the Prime People Podcast.
Thank you so much, Justin. It was awesome just to be able to have the opportunity to chat with you. And I know we got a lot to talk about, I think.
Yeah, I think we do. So why don't we just start off with the inception story, right? How did you get to the position that you're in? What made you think of the Instagram Power Method? Let's just start there.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite stories in the world to tell, and it all happened by complete and utter accident, I think is really the true answer. But about 7 years ago, I, like most people, graduated with my master's and said, I got to go to corporate America, right? I got to go get a job doing what I just spent the last 6 years of my life getting degrees for. So my undergrad degree was in journalism and psychology, and I knew that I really wanted to write. I knew I, at some point in my career, wanted to write a book. And I thought to myself, well, I don't really have what I want to say. I just know I need to do this and I want to do this. So I ended up going and getting my master's in social media public relations, which at the time was super new. Most people were like, what is that? Is that even a degree? Like social media and public relations? Like they don't, what? So it was really weird and unique. And I went straight to corporate America. Right after that, I got a great job at a public relations firm in La Mirada, California, which is the city I grew up in. And I hated it, like royally hated it.
What were you doing in public relations?
So I was actually creating and developing all of the social campaigns for our clients that came in. So at the time, Twitter was really much heavier than Instagram. Instagram was like brand spanking new. We're talking 2014. So Instagram wasn't really that much of a thing yet. And a lot of LinkedIn stuff and a lot of Facebook stuff. So really those were like your three big pillars of content, or places to put content, I should say. And I was just building the campaigns, what is our ad budget? What is our content supposed to look like? And no matter how many different ideas I had, regardless of what the client was, the content was, for me, forced to look the exact same. I wasn't allowed to use that creative bug that I had for each one of these clients. So I'm sitting there in meetings with these, very high profile clients thinking like, I have so many ideas that I can do here. And then I take it to the boss and I wasn't able to do it. Right. Because we had to stay in this very square box. And
is that because in the PR world back in the day, when you did print and radio and TV, you had to go through so many layers, but there's a big disconnect between how old school business works and new school business works, right? You can't be fast on social media if you have to do that.
No. And it's just like, we're talking press releases here even, right? Press release at the top of every press release says for immediate release. And in the corporate world, my experience at least was it took 2 weeks for that freaking letter to go out because it had to go through this chain of hierarchy, if you will, to even be hit, or for me to even be able to hit submit. So it was really, really frustrating. And so I actually quit right cold. I just walked into the boss's office and I was like, I'm sorry, but I can't get down with this. And they were overcharging and it was really frustrating. And so I started and incorporated Berman Media PD, which is the name of my company, that November. So it was November of 2014. I just said, I don't care. I was flat broke. I had $57, I remember, left on my credit card before I maxed it. And I spent that, I think it was $52. So I had like $5 left, but I incorporated the name Berman Media PD and just said, I'm going to do this on my own. And I went through this process of door-to-door business, knocking, if you will, trying to find businesses that would let me creatively create content for them and really actually have this partnership with a brand to say, what do you want your brand to sound like? What do you want your brand to say? And it just kind of took off. And then in 2017, I hired a business coach because I felt like I was on the cusp of something and I wasn't entirely sure what that was, but I said, I'm going to pay the money. I'm going to hire this coach and I'm going to let him push me in the direction that I think we need to go. So I flew to the UK and I sat in a coffee shop with him and his wife for 7 days straight. If you guys ever remember those big like easel, like poster board papers with like black markers, all we did for 7 days was just map out like where Berman Media was going to go. And we went through all of my clients, each one of the clients I had, and we said, what do I like? What don't I like about each one of them? And what we ultimately discovered was that I had a really big love for real estate. And I really, really loved working with the loan officers because a lot of them had all of these realtor relationships and they were trying to generate more realtors for their business, but didn't really know how to offer value to the realtor. So it became kind of like my way of offering the LO an opportunity to really actually add value to a realtor's life and to their business. And so when my business coach and I were done, he said, as soon as you get home from the UK, you have to fire every client you have that's not in the real estate or LO space. So of the 15 clients I had, I think I fired 11. So for a young entrepreneur at the time, that was very scary. But fast forward to 2021, and it was for sure the best decision I've ever made.
Yeah, you were able to get hyper focused, and what you just shared is a big part of what we did here, right? We didn't see a solution in the marketplace for what we think the world needed today, and we saw just an old, archaic way of doing things. So we started creating it from the ground up. The hand-to-hand combat, the $57 on your credit card, and going out and starting a business. I think a lot of entrepreneurs that I respect and I collaborate with and we mastermind, they all have that story of feeling really scared and jumping off a cliff into something, but knowing it's the right thing because it's the right thing. And I think from a content creation standpoint, I want everybody that's watching this to understand you can be yourself, right? You can have your own voice. You don't have to be what the industry says you have to be. And I think that's where the biggest disconnect is on social media. When you come up to a company and they want to make you look like everybody else. So when you're actually engaging a new client, say in the real estate or the loan space, how do you shift that perspective and draw out of them their own voice? Because I know a lot of people don't even know what their own voice is.
Yeah, that is the exact point of why I do what I do, because people, I don't care how long you've been in the industry, they don't have the ability to actually create a one-liner, what I call an I help statement. In many cases, you guys have probably heard like your elevator pitch. It's essentially the same thing, but your I help statement is who do you help, how do you help them, and what's the end result that you're guaranteeing somebody or you're offering as the why you should hire me. And that one sentence is, when I pitch that to anybody, most of the time I will say, maybe you might be one of the very few, Justin, who could actually answer that. But in most cases, they have no idea. They'll be like, oh, I specialize in, working with first-time home buyers. And I was like, okay, so you and along with 3,000 other of my
I was going to say everybody else in the industry.
Exactly. So when I first talk to somebody, I say, if you're trying to produce content that doesn't feel like white noise and doesn't just create more of the same on social media, then you're in good hands, right? Why? Because my job is to help you have a very identifiable I help statement, to the point where if I land on your Instagram and I have 5 seconds to make a decision of whether or not I'm going to stay or not, I can make that decision and with confidence, because you've given me exactly who you are, exactly who you serve, and why I should stick around. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you choose to look at that, the 5 seconds you have to convert somebody happens in your bio on Instagram. So your bio is not about the fact that you love coffee and that you're a mom or that you're a dad of 3. It's about your client, not about you.
That's very true. I muted myself so they could hear every word that you were saying. And I think people don't realize that in your bio, you are being audited 24/7. Like your website essentially now is that reading pamphlet that people grab off the table and they're learning a little bit about your company. And then when they want to go a step further and they want to know, dude, would I actually work with this person? They're scrolling your Instagram. And the reason that I think this is such a good topic is whether you're a client, whether you're an industry professional watching this, you need to understand this is how business is getting done, right? People are buying properties off social media. People are hiring people off social media. When they're hiring staff at their office, they're looking at their emails and their resumes, but they're actually going to their Instagram and their Facebooks. And it is very important to make sure that the person that you're putting out online matches the person that they're going to meet, because also, and this has happened with us directly, where I'll meet somebody, interview them, and we don't really recruit. We look for a very specific avatar here at Prime. If I see that somebody doesn't match who they say they are, that's usually a red flag. So that process that you do with clients, can you give me a little bit of insight into, say you didn't know me, some of the questions that you would ask me to maybe help me uncover my voice?
Yeah. So my first question to you would be, okay, Justin, so who's the person that you really want to work with? In a perfect world, is your ideal client another agent? Is your ideal client, if you're an LO, direct to consumer or direct to agent, right? What's that look like? And then on top of that, if we're talking direct to realtor, or if I'm talking directly to a realtor, I'm going to say, who is your ideal client, right? Who is the person that you really are you're fired up about working with? Every time you get to work with a person like that, you're so excited about. And usually they'll respond with, well, move up buyers probably, or, I really like working with a sophisticated buyer. And I then go one step further and I'm like, okay, so what does a sophisticated buyer look like? What does a move up buyer look like? And what kind of pain points specifically are we talking about as far as what those people might be struggling with? So what I call it is this value series funnel. It is the term I've coined, but essentially it goes from, we have to figure out who you actually really are as an agent, right? What's your niche? What's your target audience is the next piece. And within your target audience, you should have 3 ideal clients. I just got off a coaching call right before this with a lady who is a real estate agent in Lake Nona, just outside of Orlando. And her ideal client, actually, when we broke it all the way down, was people moving to Orlando that were either business owners, self-employed, or were moving actually from overseas on a visa to move to Florida to open an entity, or to, essentially move out of wherever they were coming from. But again, she wouldn't have figured any of that out without having to go through this value series funnel. And the homework assignment that starts this conversation is looking at your last 10 transactions and writing everything down within each one of those last 10, including where you got the lead from. And that, I think, is the missing piece. And I think that will funnel into the rest of the conversation that you and I will have, Justin. But when you're trying to say what my niche is, what my target audience is, who's my ideal client, if you can focus on where your leads for the last 10 transactions actually came from, all of a sudden that vision is way clearer. And saying, oh, it was a referral is not an answer, because where did the referral actually come from? That's the answer.
Yeah, very much so. I think that's the next layer, right? Because once they understand where it's coming from, your client you were just talking about has an idea of who her avatar is, or the clients that she's looking to go after. Very easy for her to create content around that client and answering that client's question on YouTube, on Instagram. They can do Facebook advertising. They can actually target those people, target people who are doing visas and relocations, and get the content, say, around Orlando right in front of them. So when it's ready for that person to make a decision, she's their first phone call. And I think that's the crux of what we're trying to do. The amount of times people, like even really good friends of mine, we'll go back and forth about the amount of content that I put out. And I'm like, dude, this is tangible business. Like, I can actually go into my CRM because I tag where every lead comes from and review it, and then change my content to adjust that. And it's been an ongoing thing over the last 10 years that's changed my world. And I think it's going to keep ramping up. Another question I want to ask you, because I have you here, is what do you think some of the myths people have around social and it becoming an actual sales tool?
I think that's one of them. I think literally exactly what we were just talking about is one of them, because they think that producing content is just this very general thing, right? And that they can get away with producing content that everybody else is writing. And what I mean by that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, but I don't know if it irritates you as much as it irritates me, but seeing like flyers of the 5 steps to the home buying process, or seeing like these pieces of content that people are posting that are like, here's the roadmap to your first home purchase, or here's what you need to know about your down payment, right? And it's
market update, or just sold, or just listed, or you're one of 3,000 real estate agents posting the exact same thing. You actually lose the trust of the audience when that's all you post, right?
It absolutely drives me insane. And this conversation that we've had thus far, of you even experiencing your own business, right, of being able to niche down your target or the type of content, I should say, to your target, to be able to say, oh, okay, my ideal client is a small business owner who wants to move to Florida, for example, and moving from, I live in Arizona, so we'll just use Arizona as the example, right? But let's say I call this agent, her name is Lauren in Orlando, and I say, hey, Lauren, okay, I'm moving to Orlando, Lake Nona area, but I live in Arizona and I run a small company. I have, I have 3 employees. I have all of this. Where do I even start, right, with you when it comes to that? If she's smart, she will now create content to solve pain points of me, a very real buyer, and that will be her content for the next month, right? And being able to break it down that way, you can start really getting into the weeds of the things that people actually care about learning, or care about when it comes to making the financial decision of, am I going to hire you or am I not? And I think that that's one huge issue. The second myth I want to tell or say out loud is people are so petrified by the fact that there's a lot of other people in their area that are using Instagram, right? In this case, because Instagram is my specific conversation. But I literally had an agent who called me from Ohio. He lived in Dayton, Ohio. And he said, I shouldn't, like, there's no point in me doing Instagram because there's so many other agents in Dayton that are doing it. And I said to myself, I was like, what? Like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, that's actually the reason you should be doing it, because everybody else that's doing it is probably just adding to the fluff and not actually solving any problems for clients there. But they know they need to be there, right? They know they need to be present on social media. So at least they have that. But I think
it's an easy out. I'm just going to cut you off for a second there, because I think people use that as an excuse. It's a self-defeating 100%. Narrative. And I heard a quote last week, stop counting other people's money. It doesn't really matter what they're doing. And the more you collaborate with somebody and the more you're inspired by somebody's success, the more fuel you're going to have. Like, I talked to an agent on the way to this meeting today, and he's killing it. He's doing some great developments. I called him looking for a property in Old North for one of my clients. We chopped it up. And I said to him at the end of the conversation, like, I'm happy for you, brother. Like, I'm happy to see you succeeding. I don't have time to do every single deal out there. And I'm happy to see you succeeding as well, right? Eventually, I would like to have every single deal out there on the planet, and that's my drug. But, I'm still finding joy in other people's success and inspirations. We actually have Matt LaMarche is here. He's a great agent from Atlanta. He says, great advice. Good marketers know how to ask that question. And he also said on LinkedIn that no one asked where those leads came from. And that's a great example as well, where he's in a market where there's a lot of agents that are doing things, and he's finding inspiration from those agents in his marketplace. So I think that's a great point, Michelle.
I think you have to. One, I also had a meeting, my very first meeting this morning. I will not name the company for the sake of the companies, to make sure they don't feel bad, I guess we'll say that
for
way.
Sure.
But they are archaic as heck when it comes to their marketing. And they believe, oh my gosh, we are so busy right now. The last thing on our mind is that we need to be focusing on social media and promoting to our LOs that they need to be doing social media. And I'm thinking to myself, you guys are 20 years in the past. And no matter what I say, no matter how I coach you, I don't care how many private events I do for you, it will never turn into what it should be, because you guys have your own self-fulfilling prophecy of, I can't and don't have time for more market share. So moving on, right? For me, I mean, they offered to have me come in and speak, and I said no, because for me, Like, I'm not going to waste my time on somebody who is unwilling to even get outside of their own head and say, I may be really busy right now, but that's actually a reason to double down. And I think we all experienced this during COVID. I mean, Justin, I don't know about you, but my business tripled in 2020, right? You look at COVID, and it was actually an opportunity for me to have a louder voice for what I do, because there were less people trying to do it, because people thought that they had to take out, right? Or they had to cut their marketing budget in half. Whereas in reality, the ones who put their money into marketing, into learning how to do all of this, actually capitalized on or gained more market share, right? And I don't know if Matt is still listening, but I assume Matt probably did the same thing if he had a really good year too.
Yeah, and most of the people that I saw succeed through the pandemic did just that, right? When everybody else was battening down the hatches, we were spending more money, and we ramped up our Facebook, our Google budget. We actually ramped up a lot of our activations. We own a production company as well, so we create a lot of our content in-house, and we hired 3 more people. And my thought was, everybody else is going to be quiet. Let's just be literally everywhere. And as people start coming out, they just call us more and more and more. And it's one thing I just wanted to mention, I'd love your opinion on it, is compartmentalization for people, right? Because not everybody's an individual agent. Some people are on teams. Some people own brokerages. Our audience is pretty broad reaching. How do you look at people separating, say, their identities, right? Because I do have in my mind an identity of what prime real estate is. You think real estate, you think prime, big, small, we do it all. We cover all aspects of real estate. There's a Navy SEAL team underneath it that can service them, right? That's kind of the voice for prime. Justin Konikow, I am a combination of real estate and media. My client avatar is somebody that wants a premium quality service. They want somebody with ultra high energy that is just very well connected to partner with in the community, right? And I do separate those two voices very distinctly. Would you advise that people do that if they have multiple businesses?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the thing is, when I work with teams or when I work with brokerages as a whole, everyone asks me, like, should everybody on the team still have their own Instagrams or still have their own social media presence? And my answer, 1000% yes. If anything, their personal avatar, or in this case, Justin, has to be Justin on his own, because at the end of the day, if I hire Prime and Prime sends me to Justin, I still want to know who Justin is, right? So the thing is, when you're running a team Instagram or when you're running a team Facebook page or whatever it is, I think the most important thing that anyone listening should hear me say is each person on that team has to have their own voice. And if you're producing a team Instagram, like let's say you have an assistant who's in charge of the team page, do not post any or everything but listings. Like if I see listing, and I don't see a person, you're missing the whole point. So one of the things I always recommend is focus on one person per month, right? If you have a smaller team, if you have a bigger team, maybe really hyper focus on one person per week or every 7 days, because Instagram actually works on a 6-day rotating calendar, not 7. So if you're going to do that, maybe for 6 days, it's all about that one person, and you're going to do a fun reel about their personality and the types of clients that they've done or worked with, or maybe it's like a follow Justin in the field today kind of reel. And then you're creating a persona of who this team actually is, versus, because a lot of team pages, and I don't know if you've seen what I've seen, Justin, but a lot of team pages are listing, and then it'll tag the person. And it'll be
very
like,
much so. We're going to do something fun here. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to screen share our Prime brokerage, because I don't touch this account. Actually, Rena runs it. And she does an exceptional job running it, in my opinion. So I'm just going to move this off screen and center this and just get your thoughts on it, right? Like, this was a fairly new account when we did do the separation of the two accounts. And it makes me happy to hear what you said, because the bio, this little section here for people watching, that's what she's talking about, right? Explaining what you do, where you do it, right? I don't have the exact territories listed here because there are too many to name, because we're in so many different markets. This is kind of the overarching. But what are your thoughts about the layout and the visuals?
So the only thing I would tell you, if you scroll up, Justin, is your SEO for your bio is not as optimized as it could be. So
how would I optimize it? Educate me.
Where it says Prime Real Estate in bold, not your username right there, that name section. So anyone who has Instagram, if you're looking at this, those, when you hit edit profile, you'll see two separate sections. So you'll see where it'll say name and it'll say username. Your username is that primebrokerage.ca up at the very top. And then your name line is that bold line that shows up right there that just says Prime Real Estate. Now, let me explain to you how the algorithm or the SEO, if you will, on Instagram works. Much like Google SEO, right? Which I heard you say you spent some time doubling down there for your own business. But on Instagram, that section in bold is your SEO on the platform. So if someone is sitting in California, sitting in a coffee shop, and they type in California Realtor on Instagram or hashtag CA Realtor, if you have like Prime Real Estate - California Realtors in there, you will be probably the number one searched or come up number one in the search based off that person's proximity to you. So what you're missing is the CA Realtors, because what you're going to be doing is adding trigger terms to anyone's search. So right now, let me ask you this. Is anyone going to likely type in on Instagram Prime Real Estate? No, because they don't even know that that's your name, right? Mm-hmm. They don't know that they're looking for you. What they're looking for is a California Realtor. So if you have California Realtors or -CA Real Estate, and someone types in the search bar California Realtor, because you have CA Realtor in that space, your account will pop up at the top of the search engine. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense too. And I guess going back to that question that I asked you, right? Because London, Ontario is the heart of our market. We do Kitchener, Cambridge to Sarnia, Lake Huron to Lake Erie. The Navy SEAL team covers all these different territories. Would I be saying like Ontario realtors so that I have the widest catchment area for people looking for real estate in Ontario?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is this SEO searchable, the top performing real estate company and all this section?
That doesn't increase your searchability really at all. What shows up in bold is your SEO. So that's why those two sections are the most important to have optimized.
Well, this is exciting. I'm getting a full-blown Instagram audit from a pro while we do this.
So like mine, right, has real estate coaching, I think is what it's been occasionally. And then I'll switch back and forth from real estate coaching to real estate marketing, Instagram marketing. It just depends on my mood really, but I'll change it back and forth between the three. And that way, again, I service anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter. So for me to hyper focus on a specific area or city is actually going to hurt me. Yes. Whereas for you guys, it's going to just add to your searchability. Anybody who's anywhere near Ontario, even if they don't even type in the word Ontario on Instagram, but they're physically located in Ontario, if you have that, like just think about it this way. Think about it this way. We go to dinner with our spouses, right? And we check in on Facebook and it just automatically knows where we are. It's the same thing. Instagram's going to say, oh, you know, Michelle, you're sitting in a coffee shop in the middle of downtown Ontario and you just typed in the word real estate. Oh, well, let me show you all of the realtors around where you're physically located.
Interesting. Yeah, it's fascinating because yesterday I was actually looking for a photographer for a short notice shoot that we had to do up like north of Goderich area. And I didn't want to send the shooters down from here all the way up there. And I was literally that guy. I was sitting there searching photography in Goderich, photography. I ended up messaging an agent that I work with a lot up there. And I got his guy to rip over there. And now he's part of some of the media stuff that we do. But I wasn't able to find anybody. And if one of those photographers had literally written that area in that section, I would have found them and they would have got my first phone call. So there's a real life example of how that works out.
And it's very likely that there are people there that do that. But the problem is they're not findable based off how they're producing content as of right now, right? Or based off how their profile is categorized, if you will.
Well, that's exciting. I'd like some feedback just on the grid because I think this will help people too. What are your thoughts on text layovers on images versus keeping it clean?
So I think the text, having too much text is always a bad thing. So for you, you don't have that problem at all. The only thing I will tell you from my perspective, and this is a consumer talking, not a real estate coach, maybe both, a little bit of both, is we have to humanize your people. Right now, they are very perfect people. We'll say it that way, right? Yeah. Meaning these are fantastic pictures, very elevated photography, and you do a great job at showcasing the fact that you're selling real estate and you obviously have real people that work for you. But right there, stop on that. Do you see the picture of you with the girl and the coffee? That is the realest photo I've seen this entire time you've been scrolling. Mm-hmm. right? Because that is who I'm hiring. Now, let me explain this to you. So
even the shift of this one with Victor, like not actually looking at a camera, like that's different than somebody posed for a photo, right?
Well, yeah, because if you look at all the ones above it, right, there are all these beautiful branded photos.
Yep.
And in most cases, it's like, I don't look like that all the time, right? In reality, I mean, I saw an intro video, you know, Justin, sometimes you're like a baseball cap kind of guy. Sometimes you're a let's get dressed up and put a suit on kind of guy. And I'm 37 and a half weeks pregnant, so I wear whatever I can wear right now. But for me, in most cases, right, I'm a little bit of overly professional. I'm a little bit of more standard, like I'm just wearing a t-shirt and shorts and got my hair done kind of girl. But your content has to humanize the individual. So that picture of you with the girl and the cup of coffee, I could totally see myself going and having coffee with you in that picture. Sure. Right? Now, with your content, here's the one thing for any agent that's listening. When I find an Instagram and I'm deciding, am I going to spend time on this page? And then am I going to take it one step further and convert into potentially a lead for you as a consumer? I, as a consumer, am asking myself the question, can I see myself sitting in Justin's car all day long going and looking at houses?
Yeah.
Because that's the reality, right? If someone's going to hire you, they have to say, I see myself being able to hang out with Justin all day. So I think
I'm going to switch this up and I'm going to show you how mine's kind of built, because I think that provides a contrast where it's not perfect and you do get a much more organic idea of what it would be like to hang out with me rather than just post photos all the time, right?
Yeah, and I would tell you your goal, if I could coach you directly, Justin, would be you got to do more fun reel content and you got to be entertaining in your reels. And right now, see there, I just threw you under the bus in a loving way, right? We only have a couple and they're really formal, right? We got to do non-formal ones, right? So some of those are better for sure. Now that I can see them all pop up. But when you're producing content, right? Like what does Justin do when he orders coffee, right? Are you standing in line ordering coffee saying, oh my gosh, you guys have lavender? It's my favorite, right? Like that's mine. Like I'm a honey or agave lavender latte. That's like the number one thing for me. So I literally go around the state of Arizona trying to find the best coffee shops that have lavender lattes, right? So I create connection there. I have 2 pit bulls.
Merch, just so you can put a face to the actual name. Sorry, I cut out for a second there.
Oh,
that's okay. Matt. That's nice. Matt LaMarche, the guy that made the comment earlier. So shout out to Matt. You're a beautiful man. Awesome. I appreciate you. That's awesome.
Right. So we have to, like, one of the things I tell people is they're really worried about getting too personal versus too business. And I think that, or like what the variant of the two should be. And if you're looking at yours, Justin, right, there's a lot of really professional content. There's also some not professional content, which I think is really important. And I think the only thing I would really want you to do is really actually lean into the stuff that you enjoy doing when you're not doing real estate a little more. Because I want to know what Justin enjoys doing, because guess what? Maybe it's what I enjoy doing, right? I mean, I was a competitive CrossFitter for almost 7 years. I swam for almost 20 years, all through college. And I am now about to be a mom and still trying to figure out how to work out and run a 7-figure company all at the same time, right? So I can lean into the stuff that I enjoy to create connection, right? My husband's also prior military. So I work and personally enjoy working with a lot of people who enjoy working with veterans, right? Because I have this really common connection with them. So for you, Justin, what are those things, right? What makes Justin outside of being a really good agent?
Yeah, and I think I've kind of formalized that into what I'm doing right now, right? Where the media side of things and the fact that I have a separate YouTube channel from the fact that I'm not only selling real estate all day, I love photography, I do jiu-jitsu, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that makes me me. And that is actually, I'm happy that we're having this conversation, because that's tangibly why you saw the separation, because the prime brokerage page used to just be my page. But then I realized I'm not prime anymore. It's not just me. Like, they're working with everybody else within the organization. And part of the content strategy that we have to share with the audience to affirm everything she's saying is our monthly vlog now incorporates all those people in a very raw way, right? Our next vlog that we're putting out is going over how we were getting % better every day. We're not all about 100% better one day, 1% a day But how do we do that? What are we learning? What does the job entail? The good, the bad, the ugly, you know, us working out in the basement, eating maybe a little bit healthier. So we have the energy to do our jobs, but it does translate. And this is where I think this will be a great connection for the audience to understand what you've been saying since the start. The more you do that and you humanize yourself, the more business you're actually going to get. If you only talk about real estate, you're not going to get any business because you're just another person talking about real estate, right? And that's the big disconnect that I think people have is, you know, especially they get new to the business and they think, I got to post just listed and just sold because that's what that uber successful agent that bought 100,000 followers is doing, when in actuality, they're never going to get anywhere. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will tell you, to lead into the conversation about leads, which is what everybody really wants, right? Everyone wants genuine organic business that they don't have to pay for, that comes to them. Everybody wants that. Every client I talk to that reaches out, Michelle, I'm sick of paying money for Facebook ads and my conversion is really low. How do I make it better? Right. And I always ask them, okay, so you're spending money on Facebook ads, but do you have an organic presence to back it up? Oh, well, I posted like 3 things and it's all pictures of my dog. I'm like, that's your problem, right? You could have the most killer Facebook company helping you with your Facebook ads, and it could be like the most dialed in you could ever imagine. But without an organic presence to back it up, it's just going to fall flat in most cases, which is why Instagram, I always say this, Instagram is your new website. Nobody gives a crap about your website until they've seen you organically through social media platforms, wherever that is. Now, to generate
so
leads,
I would argue it doesn't even matter. Like if you have the online presence and you don't have a personal website, doesn't really matter in today's day and age. Like it's good to have a website for sure, but I do think the social profile is more important this day and age.
Absolutely. I think stop spending money on websites altogether, honestly. And I mean, like my website, the only thing that you can do on my website is buy the course. Like that's it, because there's no need, right? Because everything else on my social media is going to answer all of the questions about what are the testimonials, what are the about me, what all of these other things that are typically your tabs on your website anyway. And so the thing I really want people to hear is that your Instagram should be an opportunity for people to learn who you are, figure out if they can see themselves spending time with you all day in the car, also figure out what you really specialize in, and find the story behind your real estate career and the clients you've served, right? So if I am doing Instagram or if I'm doing social media correctly, that person should be sliding into your DM saying, me too, right? I just saw another story on somebody's Instagram. Let's pretend it's yours, Justin, right? Let's say you tell a story about a client that you just worked with who was this military family getting ready to move. They thought they had to put 20% down. The husband's been working his butt off. His wife's about to have a baby and they really want to buy a house. But that person comes across your Instagram and sees that you just said or told a story about another client that you served who didn't need 20% down because he's military, and were able to get him into a house before he got deployed. So his wife now lives in this beautiful house while he's serving his country. Then you see that other person reach out and say, oh my gosh, me too, right? Or, hey, Justin, I saw you help that person. Could you help me as well? Now, what I want to solidify this with, and then I'll throw it back to you, Justin, is when I have sales calls, when you have sales calls, I imagine that most of those sales calls are really pretty darn easy to convert. Now, the answer really, or the question is why, and the reason being because they have no question what they're getting when they reach out. Because I know who Justin is. I know what Justin can offer me. I don't need to go shop him around with 20 other agents. I know I just want Justin, right? And I can tell you from 7 years ago to today, I don't even remember the last sales call I didn't convert, to be honest.
It's a different world and it's a different type of business. You asked me what type of clients I want to work with. I want to work with people that want to work with me. Honestly, it comes to a point where you want to align yourself, and this is in all things, financial advisors, you know, the guy that I'm buying coffee from, it doesn't really matter. I want to work with somebody who's passionate, very skilled at what they do, is honest, ethical, has intelligence, integrity, and energy. That's what I want to work with. I don't want to work with somebody that calls me and the first words out of their mouth is, what commission do you charge? Or the house is going to sell itself. All the best to you. If you think that's what it is, then go ahead. I actually don't have the time to go through it and just do that battle with you. And if you can work with people that have skill sets that can say no, there's usually a reason that they're in that position, right? I think it's a two-way street. You want to make sure you're partnering with somebody who, you know, you don't necessarily need each other, but you're better together. And that's the ultimate relationship, I think, in my eyes.
100%. And I love when people schedule calls with me. And right now, the first thing out of their mouth is, Michelle, when are you going to have that baby? Right. And so like, they know more about me almost than I feel like they should. In a way, like, that's, how do you know that?
For sure.
But it makes for a really fun and very easy conversation. And now I always tell everybody this, if you can create the most killer virtual relationships with someone, when you meet them in real life and you're actually going out and showing them houses, it should be even easier and like the best day, because you've already built this relationship virtually. And I say to lots of people, like Justin, I'll use you as an example. We don't know each other super well, but we know each other well enough now that if I were ever to be in Ontario and I'd be like, hey, Justin, let's go get coffee, I wouldn't shake your hand. I'd hug you, right?
For
because
sure.
we create that relationship and we're able to do so virtually. So to do that is by being human, being a real person that someone can also see themselves experiencing in real life, and not being afraid to just be your organic, silly self. And I'll never forget this, because one of the biggest ticket items I've ever sold on my Instagram, I'm not kidding you, I was literally driving home from Costco after being at the gym with a red face, with my hair on my head, and I got on stories and I was talking about how we only had one spot left for one of my private events. And the guy sent me a DM and was like, I've been literally looking for an event like this. I'm so excited. Can you send me the details? And I look like crap. Like, I literally look like crap, right? But it was like this very authentic version of me in my everyday life. And that's what people are craving so bad, because we are forced to be virtual in so many cases right now. So if you can focus on being better at that, even if the rest of your content's kind of sucky still for right now, if you can focus on that one thing, I promise you will convert way higher than you've ever converted on social media before.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because we were looking at the insights, and I recently posted a photo as my wife and I's 10-year anniversary. I wrote, truthfully, what I feel about that, right? Like, it felt like we went by in a blink, but it feels like I've known her my whole life. And I mean, I've had photos with Sirhan and McGilvery, like, they're good friends of mine, and Shannon's post outperformed those, because it was a very raw moment where it was just like, hey, this is who I am. And I mean, I said to her, I'm like, I got to tell both those guys that she got more traction than they did, even though they're superstars. But one more thing I want to cover, and then we're going to do a quick rapid fire and get you out of here. I want you to help people break the paralysis by analysis. One of the biggest patterns I see, people are afraid to hit the play button or the launch button or the record button until they have their entire image ready and packaged and it's all perfect. And meanwhile, other people that are practitioners are out there doing the work and actually refining it as they progress. So how would you snap somebody out of it if you were trying to get them to just start?
I mean, it's exactly what you just said. There's no way for you to know that you don't like something. There's no way for you to know that it's not what you want it to be if you're not doing it in the first place. So, or if you're not producing. Right. So one of the things I tell every single person that I talk to, that whether they have zero presence or have a great presence and they want it to be better, whatever, is keep doing what you're doing over the course of like 30 days intentionally. So be intentional for 30 days, exactly how you are, and then go back and look at it and say, what are the pros and the cons? What are the things I like? What are the things that I don't like? What are the things that I wish I would have done better? Right. Great example. People spend an ungodly amount of money on branding, right? And like getting all their colors and all of this stuff done. And I say, why? Like, use Canva color palette generator, which is what I teach my clients how to do. Upload your logo or a color palette that you found on Pinterest that you really like, right? Especially for the ladies, I would say, if you use Pinterest or know anything about Pinterest, you can literally type in lavender color palette and then it'll pop out QR or color codes, like hex codes, right back at you. And those can be transferred into Canva. And then the other thing, right, is we have this paralysis of posting. We're like, well, I don't know if all these colors go well together. I don't know if I love my templates or not. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But I always tell them, put them out. Just post them for like a 30-day period, because it won't be until that where you can look back at it and say, that's why I don't like it. And that's why I felt weird about it in the beginning. But I didn't know that until it was out. Great example. One of my clients loves evergreen, like the color evergreen. It's like a dark foresty green. It's not quite olive green. It's a little darker. But all of her templates, she used that evergreen as the background color. Well, guess what? She felt weird about posting them in the first place. And I said, nope, don't do that. Just put them out there. 30 days later, we had another coaching call and I was like, what's going on? Like, what do you feel looking at your content? She goes, Michelle, it's too green. That's what it is. It's so green. Every piece of content looks green and it makes my entire account look really dark. Like the aesthetic of my account is too dark. But again, how would she have known that if she didn't just put it out there in the first place? Another one is videos, like scripted videos, right? People always want to do these scripted videos with like the fancy videography and like the teleprompter where they just read it off that. And I will tell people that the reason you feel like you have to do that is because you're not confident in your ability to deliver the conversation. So how can you get better at that? Stop trying to record a 12-minute video straight, because you're going to want a scripted video to do that if you've never done a video in the first place, right? So if you have a topic that you want to talk about, let's pretend it's, I don't know, 1031 exchanges, right? Let's just pretend we're talking about that. If you have a topic like that, break it down into 4 or 5 bullet points underneath that topic and make 2-minute videos about each one of those little bullet points. So like pick a bullet point, record a 2-minute video, hit stop. Pick the second bullet point, record a 2-minute video, hit stop. Now, any realtor, regardless of how long you've been in the industry, if that's something you want to talk about, you can talk about something for 2 minutes and stay in that lane pretty confidently, right? Without a script, and it'll be much more natural. You may say too many times. You may have a couple pauses here and there, but as you get better at doing these shorter, quick 2-minute clips, eventually they're going to be able to hopefully be like you, Justin, right? Where you can record a 40-minute YouTube video without even needing anything. I mean, I can do
this is unscripted. And the only way that I was able to do that is doing stories and videos over the last couple of years, and just by practice. And if I take a month off, it takes me a little bit to get back into it, right? So don't be scared. Just hit that record button. You can reach out to Michelle and definitely connect with her directly. I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and then I'm going to let you go. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome.
Let's do it.
So what is the greatest lesson you've learned over the years?
To not have a backdoor to entrepreneurship, regardless of what industry you're in. If you think that there's a plan B, you'll never succeed at what your actual goal is with plan A.
Scott McGilvery taught me this, and he said people will know 99 reasons they should do something, and they will fail or not do it because of the one reason not to. What are you learning right now?
The most important thing for me right now as a business owner is the growth process and the scaling process for me. We're in just a massive phase of growth to the point where like I have to hire multiple people, and I really have never been super good at that because I never had to be. And I now have 2 full-time employees, and we need at least 2 more. And so I've really been trying to learn from my mentors and people like you, Justin, who run a huge team and a huge organization of how do you hire properly? How do you know how to delegate? And how do you also know when to let go of control? And I think that's a hard thing for me I'm about to be on maternity leave, and people ask me, they're like, well, are you taking your 12 weeks? And I'm like, no, because what is my company going to do without me? Right. Mm-hmm. And it's like my own internal fear of like, well, will my company crumble if I'm not here? So learning how to hire.
You'll be fine.
Learning how to hire is the big one for me. And then learning how to trust the people that work for you that, really do know what they're doing, and letting go of that.
2 books, Who Not How for the hiring process, and then Rocket Fuel for the growth process. I don't know if you know EOS or the Entrepreneurial Operating System, but Rocket Fuel is the book you need to check out because it'll speak to exactly what you're going through right now.
I'm going to go buy it on Amazon and get off here.
Awesome. How has failure shaped your life is the last question I like to ask people.
Oh my gosh, it's changed everything. I've learned more in every failure I've ever had, whether it's a failed relationship, a failed business proposition that I decided to start, or a failed launch. I'll never forget July of 2018 when I launched the Instagram Power Method. I remember running around my house thinking, to my husband, babe, we're going to crush this. Like there's no way nobody's going to buy this. Right. We were so excited, and we didn't sell a single course for almost 3 months. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, like I've just put my entire life into this thing and nobody cared. And I couldn't figure out why. And it wasn't until I internally looked back and said, oh, that's why. I had no email sequence. Wasn't promoting it on Instagram. I was just I wasn't promoting it properly on my social media, right? Where you have like a launch plan. I wasn't doing any of that. And we relaunched again, and we not only passed our goal, but we like tripled it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had to fail. Like that had to happen to me in order for me to say, hold on, let me slow down and make sure that my business is actually lined up the way it's supposed to be. And now, fast forward almost 4 years later, and now I'm coaching other people how to launch and how to sell a real estate coaching program or something that they're trying to do. I have a realtor that I'm working with that is trying to launch a book. He wrote a book and is trying to launch it. And he's like, how do I even do this? But again, I'm confident in coaching him because I failed so hard the first time around when I tried to do it myself. And I think one of the other things with failure, I'll tell everybody, is there's something to be said about wanting to do it on your own, right? Trying to piecemeal it and trying to figure out if I download this freebie or if I go buy this book and then like put it all together, I can create a strategy. Spend the money on somebody that's been down there, done it, and walked the walk. It's worth every penny. And I promise you that if you do your research and you hire the right person before you do that, the distance between A and B, A being where you start and B being your goal, will be a lot shorter.
Get a lot more opportunities to, as you pour into those relationships, it'll open up other doors. That was all extremely valuable advice. I wish you nothing but the best. I appreciate having you here. Where can I send people to go connect with you?
Either Instagram, Berman Media Social. If you want to connect with me there, that's probably where I respond to more than my own, cell phone or via text, I would say. And then my website is the secondary one, Berman Media PD, P as in Paul, D as in dog.com. We'll give you all the information and details about what we do, our course, or my coaching, my course, and being able to book a call with me if you'd like to.
I appreciate that so much. And you'll those links be on YouTube replay, or Aaron in the other room next to me chops it up, adds the timestamps for all the categories. Appreciate your time as always. As mentioned earlier, we are dropping the first action guide PDF. I dropped a link. It'll be pinned on the YouTube channel as well. Michelle, I'll see you out there in the wild. And if you'd like to start a podcast, I'll come on and talk about the team building stuff with you anytime. I'm an open book with that stuff.
I've been dreaming of doing that, and it's definitely a big thing for 2022. So you may be one of the first, Justin. I'll let you know.
I'll show you how to set it up. No charge. I'm happy to do it. So thank you so much, Michelle. Take care.
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.